Hey guys, the following is a video that I did this past Monday with Kevin, Jessica, and Kerr from Cigar Prop. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think it was a great interview. Pretty good content. They're very great at interviewing, so I really enjoyed myself. So stay tuned.
All right, so waiting patiently in the Experience Acid Green Room is Arnold Serafin of Serafin de Cuba Cigars. Arnold, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Really excited to be here tonight.
Oh, we're excited to have you on and learn a little bit about you, your brand, and learn about why Boston Jimmy's all won't shut up about you. So it's
I paid the guy. What else could it be?
Yeah. He's doing a very good job for whatever.
He's just a good friend.
Yeah,
he's really a great guy. Love Boston Jimmy.
Oh,
so kudos to him.
Yeah, he's around your neck of the woods. How far is he away from you?
Well, no, he's actually on the East Coast. He's over there in Melbourne.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's
okay. Yeah, you're in the Tarpon. You know,
I'm just north of
damn geography.
Yeah. I can never remember where I've never been to Tarpon Springs.
What?
But yeah,
it's a neat little town. It's like a little Greek town, a little Greek fisherman.
Yeah. I that's why I saw a little video on that. But how Tarpon Springs do during the hurricanes that we got? I know you got a couple shops over there.
Yeah, well, I got one in Tarpon Springs, and then I have one a little bit north in Spring Hill, which is where my son works. And Spring Hill, we didn't have any damage in either one of the storms. But the first storm, which was Helene, they hammered us pretty hard, and it was 100 miles off the coast, and it still just found its way to do enough damage to bring in the coastal flooding is what it was. The surge came up. We had about 3 feet of water in the shop. I lost some product. Unfortunately, I have everything up high anyway, but we did lose a little bit of product and just stuff that I can't really replace. And of course the drywall and a few other things. And it's weird because, almost 20 years there, we never had this problem, but anytime you're by the Gulf, these things happen. So
what is the history of the town your little cigar shop's in?
Yeah. So Tarpon Springs, of course I'm Cuban, right? Let me just say that. So everybody always says, what's a Cuban guy doing in Tarpon Springs? I'm like, well, we came here one day, we loved it, and I just decided to set up shop there, basically. But the history with them is most of the Greeks that settled in Tarpon Springs, they came like in the 1920s, and they were sponge divers from like the Greek islands. And somebody mentioned it to them, there was a sponge, sponge industry was kind of starting out. And they said, if you come here, you could probably do the same thing you're doing back home. And not only did they come over, but they kind of revolutionized the way the sponge industry was being done here. Because they brought like, the old diving tanks and the line and who knew, man? Like they just went out there and started harvesting sponges, and it became like this really big commercial thing. And they started bringing over the relatives and families, and I guess at this point you could say probably 4 or 5 generations later, most of the Greeks in Tarpon Springs are either from back then or from now, but there's been a constant flow of people from Greece back and forth.
The largest really population of Greek in the United States.
From the islands mostly, but most of them are from a little island called Kalymnos.
Oh my gosh.
Probably 70 or 80%, yeah.
So is the sponge diving industry still big in Tarpon Springs?
I can tell you right now, it's mostly they still do it, but it's a smaller scale than it was 100 years ago. They do bring in a lot of them from the Caribbean now and other places as well. Key West, Bahamas as well.
Oh,
but they still bring it. Like if you go there on a regular day, you'll see a bunch of the boats there on the avenue. They're harvesting them, drying them out. It's pretty cool. Oh, and I'm smoking a Juan de Fuca, like you said too. By the way.
Oh yeah, definitely can't wait to dig that one.
Yeah,
I think you're gonna like this. This is our latest one. We debuted this one at the PCA this year. So.
Good pairing with Maker's Mark.
So let's get into Arnold's story. So from the few news articles that I see that are written about you, and then I saw a couple of local like TV like spots that you have done with your local news. I know your family story starts in Spain, goes to Cuba, goes back to Spain, New Jersey, and finally Tarpon Springs, where you're out of all places. Yeah. So out of all places. So we're gonna start with Spain and then stop in New Jersey, and then I'm sure we're gonna have a ton of questions, and then we'll continue from New Jersey to Tampa. So tell
Sure.
us a story of all the way going back because you're fourth generation tobacco man.
Yeah, man. The timeline, basically, my great grandfather, he was from a small island in Spain called Canary Islands. Let me just say that the Canary Islands are off the coast of Africa, and they were pretty much instrumental. The people from the Canary Islanders, were instrumental in getting the whole tobacco growing business in Cuba set up. And my great grandfather, he was a soldier in the Spanish Army, and he went to Cuba during the Spanish-American War, and then he ended up staying there. And originally, he went to Pinar del Rio, which is, of course, the biggest tobacco growing area in Cuba. And then after he was there for a little bit, he went to central Cuba, which is where he settled. And then he got back into growing tobacco there. And then my grandfather, his son, he basically grew up in the tobacco fields of the Santa Clara, slash Las Villas, which is the name of the area. And then eventually he had his own little cigar factory. And then my grandfather grew up my dad grew up with my grandfather, basically the same way, just in the fields and in the cigar factory. And they had what you call a chinchal, which is a small cigar factory. And most of it was all, my dad's uncles, his cousins, everybody worked together. And, they were more of a local brand in central Cuba. And, that's pretty much how he earned his living, my grandfather. And then by the time my dad, became an adult, then the whole revolution thing happened because dad was basically 17 or 18 years old when Castro came in. So, just like here, a lot of the times, you always want the next generation to get educated and go to school and stuff. So my grandfather, he wanted my dad to become he said, work in the business with me if you want, but I want you to go to college. So he went to what was called the School of Commerce in Santa Clara, and he became an accountant by trade. So, he's kind of working his way into that. And then, ultimately they decided, of course, to leave Cuba because of the whole thing with the revolution and Castro. And they ended up going to New Jersey because my mother's side of the family, they were already in Jersey from like the 1950s before Castro. So, we had a lot of family in Jersey already. And then they settled up there. And then, dad was out of the cigar business for quite a while. And back in the early 90s, he took me to Cuba. And my grandfather was still alive. And I've told this story multiple times, but it's really what kind of got the whole thing going for me is I saw my grandfather rolling cigars again. And I said to my dad, we really should get back into this because this is our family legacy. And my father, I was only, 14 years old. He looked at me and said, you really want to do that? I'm 14 years old. I'm like, yeah, I think I do. and he probably thought I was crazy. And I was, like they say in Spanish, just a crazy little kid or whatever. But years later, ultimately, unfortunately, my mother passes away back in 2003. And then my dad was like, you know what? If you really want to do this, I'm on board 100%. Let's do it. So that's when we kind of got into the whole thing and started doing cigars again. And here we are now. It's been about 20 years.
So now your dad went back to Spain first, correct? From what I
did.
read. So why did your dad decide, and why didn't your grandfather decide to leave, and your grandmother, why, with your dad?
Oh man, let me tell you, if you know Cuban families, it's like they all come together, right? It's like a big string, and that was the plan. My dad wanted to come here with his father and his mother, but unfortunately, my aunt at the time, she couldn't get out of Cuba, so that was already a draw to leave them there, unfortunately. And you know what? My story is the story of so many, I guess, millions of Cubans right now that the families have been separated for multiple reasons. And, Dad went back to Spain because of the whole Spanish connection. He was able to, get permanent residency in Spain. And then he worked as an accountant in Madrid for 3 years. And he always used to tell me, he would say, Dad, son, I loved it there. It was so great. He goes, but eventually, my mom wanted to reunite with her side of the family. So that's why we went to Jersey. But who knows? Otherwise, I'd probably be bullfighting in Spain instead of making cigars.
You never know. Now your grandfather was in Cuba at the same time as the Pepins, Nodals, Carrillos, Padrones.
Oh God, I got a story for you I could share.
I was going to ask, did he know? I mean, were they all friends at that time, or?
Well, the Padrones, like you said, they're way out in Pinar del Rio, so that was not a connection. But I'll tell you a funny story. In 2004 or 2005, I went to the trade show with a good friend of mine and her dad. I don't know if you've ever had them on here before. Florida Gonzalez Cigars.
Oh, I've heard of them. We haven't had them on. Yeah.
I was just smoking a cigar with him yesterday. He's 83 years old with Arnaldo Gonzalez, and Yadi, and they're like family to me. So at the time, believe it or not, I was living in Miami, and I was helping them out with their brand. So I went to the trade show in New Orleans, and I'm wearing my little badge, and we go. Don Pepin had just basically started his operation about 2 or 3 years before, and he looks at my badge. He says, "Oh, Serafin." He says, "Who was Ramon Serafin?" I said, "That was my grandfather." He says, "You know something?" He goes, "I remember your grandfather wearing a white guayabera on his horse, coming to my family ranch and buying tobacco from my family, the Garcia family." And then I got back here to Florida, and I told my dad. He says, "Oh yeah," he says, "we used to buy tobacco from them all the time." And then a few years after that, yeah, great story, man. And a few years after that, Don Pepin came up here to do an event, and I took Dad to see him. And I'll tell you, man, those two, they were just talking all night long. It was magic, man. I got pictures. It was really good.
I was going to say you got to commission that for a painting. That sounded freaking.
Did you guys get the cigar? Did you guys get his cigar in the bag or no? You guys might have it. And it is a painting that I did. Not on a horse, but you probably have it there.
I have
the
one
Don
with
Ramon 1917. It's got like a little pigtail on it.
Yes, I have that one.
That's my grandfather. And that painting, painting that you see there was painted by a gentleman named Milton, the tobacco painter, just like the Hurricane. Milton.
Oh, how cool.
Who's in Cuba. But I mean, like, I normally have the paintings at my store, but because of the hurricane, I took them down, so they're here at the house. Yeah. But that guy creates these awesome paintings, and he puts tobacco leaves on them. Yep, that's it.
That's
so
cool.
There's two.
You'll have
is
to.
That the,
and that's my dad. That's your
dad. Okay. I was looking through the photo. I don't have that.
Steal my thunder, Kevin, with me putting the cigar up.
Yeah.
He didn't send you any of those? We didn't send you that one?
I don't think so. But that's okay. That's good. We definitely appreciate the cigars you send us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. There's two Don Ramones though. Don Ramon 1917 is grandpa, the one that Kurt has, and then 1942 is the one I did for my dad, and he's a Connecticut guy. So that cigar that you see there was he passed away as well, unfortunately, back in 2019. So
you're born in Jersey, and I heard you and Jessica talking beforehand.
Yeah, we're talking about Jersey, man.
Yeah. So at what age did you leave Jersey? So
I came down here to Florida. Yeah, I came down here when I was about 14 years old. So I went to high school here.
Oh, okay. So your family, so your whole family left. I wasn't sure if you, as an adult, came down here on your own. So what?
No,
what
I came down here. I came down here like during the high school years. My parents had a house in Miami, and like Cubans, right? We're always in New Jersey, Union City specifically, West New York, right, or Tampa, which is kind of where I'm at here, or Miami. Those are like our three biggest communities.
So it's funny that you say that because on my mom's side, my great-grandfather was from Spain and my great-grandmother was from Jamaica, and they had a place in Miami, and then they took the whole family to New Jersey.
That'd be great.
Like I hear that same story about stuff all the time, and I'm like, it's just a kid. It must just
it's fascinating,
be
isn't it?
Hubs, right? Like hubs. This is
like
your safety. This is your people. Yeah, this is where your people are. This is where you need to go.
You know what? What's interesting is like, I mean, I talked about it a little while ago, but I kind of researched it a little bit some years ago. But now, believe it or not, most people, they don't migrate for work and for economy. I guess it's still kind of economy. You could say the people that come over there, they're looking for whatever is like the most reasonable. Back then, they were just looking for places that they could find work. And of course, northern New Jersey, New York, there was so much work, so much employment. Like my mom's side of the family, some of them, I remember my uncle, he passed away in New Jersey probably about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer even. And he always told me, he said, I said, Uncle, how come you didn't go to Miami? He said, I went to Miami in 1955, right? He said, man, he goes, the only job I could find in Miami, no shit, was washing dishes at the Fontainebleau Hilton. I said, really?
Oh,
wow.
I said, so why'd you go to Jersey? He says, well, his best friend had already gone to Jersey, and he was working in a leather factory. He says, look, if you come up here, I'll get you a job at the leather factory. And then besides that, I'll get you, besides that, we can go see the Yankees because they were both Yankee fans. So it was like, they loved it.
Yeah, especially over where you said in like Hoboken and stuff, like, all the little factories there, and it's interesting because like on my dad's side of the family, like I want to say it's like 3 times great grandparent or whatever, like started off in a factory and then was able to like become a partner in this
that's
factory at some point. And so it's kind of just cool, some of the history, but it was they did flour, imported flour or something like that in Hoboken. Amazing. And I'm like, this is nuts. My uncle found all this cool documentation, and I was like, oh, how neat is that? And they were off the boat from Germany, on my dad's side. So they're barely speaking any English to then all of a sudden being able to have someone in their family own something or be a owner of something,
that's
so
a proud moment, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back then, especially when your dad came over, I said you could start at a factory, and then in a couple of years you could have your own factory.
Yeah.
That was
back then there was a lot of embroideries.
The American dream.
That was the American dream. Right.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And within a few years, most of the Spaniards, the Cubans, Italians, I mean, we were all together there, right? Yeah. They all started buying up, the old buildings, and that's another interesting thing, right? That part of Jersey, Bergen Line Avenue, which was the main thoroughfare there, where all the little Main Street, basically, all the businesses were there. At the time, right after the Second World War, actually, a lot of the people, they went over to the war, and when they came back, instead of going to that part of Jersey, they went to Bergen County, which was more suburban, a little bit nicer. So when the Cubans came in the late 50s and early 60s, there was a big void there. All the buildings were, I'm not going to say that they were run down, but they were a little bit run down. They were, they were affordable. There was these, like you said, the bodegas and stuff that they said, oh, let's put these up. And little by little, they made this beautiful community there.
Yeah.
It was
Ybor City is like that with the old
booming and thriving at one point.
Yeah, Ybor. Yeah,
but they're coming in, and people are coming in.
Yeah, thank you to the Newmans. The Newmans reinvesting in Ybor City, and
they have. They put a lot of money back in the community. Great guys, Bobby and Eric and Drew.
Yeah. That's it. So you left New Jersey when you were 14, landed in Miami, and then you go back to or you go to Cuba for your first time. Tell us about that trip to Cuba. Was it everything you thought? Because what year was that when you went to Cuba?
1993.
So it was still beautiful. I mean, I was there a year ago. So beautiful places. Not so much anymore in certain areas. So how was it? I mean, because it was still a beautiful place back then.
Oh yeah, I mean it's still beautiful. It's just the government there. Unfortunately, I don't want to get political either, but. The communism there has been bad, and it's just right now, Cuba's suffering from an outage, a power outage across the country. It's horrible. My cousin, I have a cousin that I talked to, and he sent me a message the other day. He just said, primo, he said, cousin, he goes, this is unbearable. He goes, we're getting maybe 1 hour or 2 hours of electric all day. He goes, this is inhumane, man. And it's
10 million out of power.
For what?
Can you imagine?
Horrible.
Because the power grid collapsed. The power grid collapsed.
They're not saying what triggered it. And,
I'll tell you what triggered it. The Castro regime triggered it for 7 years.
Control.
The transformers that haven't been updated since 1950.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Anything that was worth a shit in Cuba was made by the Americans, right? So think about it. 1960 or 61, the embargo comes in. No more American anything. They haven't maintained anything. It's the Russians for a little bit. They helped out, but that was back in the early 60s, and now 50 years later, there's nothing. There's no infrastructure. There's nothing there.
Yeah, because even when you went, Kevin, they're not benefiting from you going there.
No.
These are all private hotels and all stuff. They have very strict rules. There. You can't.
You go to the tourist section in Havana, and there's still. A little bit more. There's better, obviously, because it's the tourism money that they want. Mm-hmm. But you go into the regular areas of Cuba. That's Santa Clara was the third largest city in Cuba. Havana, Santiago, and then Santa Clara, where my family's from. And you should see it, and it's just so run down. It's and it was once a beautiful place.
I watched the old videos in the 40s and 50s, and the two most popular tourist destinations in the world was Havana and then Baghdad. You think about that, but the parties in Baghdad, everybody wanted to be in Cuba. All of the actors,
that was huge.
Huge, and it's just it's that was the heyday of.
I was just talking to my dad about that this morning because he was talking about The Godfather, and that scene when
it was like that,
yeah. Yep.
As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a story about that. Right, the Hotel Nacional, which is that's the biggest hotel in Havana, which was it was owned by Meyer Lansky actually. So I think it was 1947 or 48. Frank Sinatra does this huge party down there, and he brings in the women and everything. And anyway, God, what the heck was his name? Lucky Luciano. Okay, you guys know about the deal with Lucky Luciano. The United States, they cooperated with him so he could give them information on the port in New York with the Germans and all that. Anyway, Meyer Lansky did a deal with the U.S. government. He says, look, you get Luciano, you get him out of jail, and I'll help you guys get the port of New York. We'll make sure that the Germans don't go in there and infiltrate the port and the harbor and stuff. He said, okay. So what they did was they got him out of jail, but they sent him back to Italy, right? Well, within like maybe a month or two after that, he took a boat and went from Sicily to Havana, and the Americans had no idea that he was hanging out in Cuba. But when Frank Sinatra did this huge party, they saw that it was crazy, and that's when they realized that Lucky Luciano. They're like, oh my God, what the hell is he doing in Havana? He rented a huge house in the Miramar neighborhood, and he was living in Cuba. And then the U.S. had so much control over Batista back then that they told Batista, they said, listen, you got to deport him. You got to get him the hell out of there. So they sent him back to Sicily. So
man, I never heard that. Heard that story. I never knew he left. Yeah, I never knew he left Sicily. You don't hear that.
Oh yeah, he would have stayed in Havana forever, man. That was the place to be.
I can't. Now, when you went there when you were 14, was that the first time you met your grandfather?
Let me tell you, Granddad. Thankfully he had been to New Jersey back in 83, and then he went to Jersey in 89. So thank God Dad was able to get him at the time what you call a humanitarian visa. And, he was able to come for about a month at a time. And to answer what you asked me earlier, he would have totally stayed. But my grandmother at the time was like, well, but if we stay, what's going to happen with my aunt, who also passed away a few years ago? So it's like this chain of events, man. It's just,
Yeah,
it was sad.
How do you choose, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is. So on that trip, I mean, were you being from a tobacco family, were you smoking cigars at that point? Were you able to sit down and smoke a cigar with your grandfather in Cuba?
Let me tell you what happened. This is the best part of the story, right? So I get there. I'm never going to forget this, right? We landed in Havana, and it was raining, man. It was storming all night. And then we had to drive to Santa Clara, which is about 4 hours away. So we're driving through the highway there, and it was really, really dark, pitch, just pouring rain. And when we get there, it was like midnight. Everybody was in the house waiting for us, and it was just like this big party. It was unbelievable, right? Just everybody sitting around, everybody crying. It was beautiful. But after a couple of days, we're there, getting settled there, and I see my grandfather rolling his own cigars, and I'm like,
"No,
what are you doing?" He said, "I'm making my own little cigars." And then my uncle, the cousin I'm telling you about, his dad comes over and he says, "Hey, Pascasio, you want to make some cigars?" I said, "Sure." So they get out all their leaves and all their equipment, and in like an hour, man, they're making these little like Corona-sized cigars. And I was like, okay, this is fucking cool. Now I got to smoke.
Oh, man.
So I'm here smoking a cigar with my uncle and my grandfather, and I'm like, Grandpa, would you make me some of these to take back to Florida? He says, yeah, sure. Hold on a second. So he says, get this money. He gives me some Cuban money, just like this, right? He goes, go about 3 houses down. I can't remember the neighbor's name. He goes, tell him to, send you some, some of this leaf and that leaf, ligero, seco, whatever. And I brought the stuff back. I got over there, and I said to the guy, oh, Ramon sent me here to, oh, you're his grandson. Oh, yeah, hold on a second. Boom, he gives me all these leaves. And he, because I think he was growing them in his backyard, which is amazing, remarkable.
yeah, I know. Just that fact alone blows you away.
That fact alone.
Yeah. And then, not only smoking a cigar with him, but cigars that he made and rolled.
Oh, my God. I wish I still had them. I like to say that those were like the best cigars I ever smoked in my life, because I think the fact that, my grandfather made them was even more special.
Oh, of course.
But, what was I going to tell you? So he had this little mold, right? I have several molds, probably a couple hundred molds at the store, different sizes and stuff that we still use. And a buddy of mine who actually works for the Newmans now, he makes the American for them. He's one of the rollers there.
Oh,
wow. He went to Cuba back in like 2015 or something, and he brought me back my grandfather's last mold.
Oh, really?
And I have it at the shop.
Wow.
It's to me, it's a treasure.
That's awesome.
Man, I met him several times. Whenever we go up and do something for JC Newman, they always take us over and we always watch them. rolling
Louis, the little guy, Luisito.
Yeah.
There's only I think him and a woman. I think there's just the two.
Yeah.
Two people.
I think there's three.
Oh, there's three now.
A third, but
the third he makes the Angel Cuesta.
That's right, the Angel Cuesta. But
So then, you definitely met Luisito.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
Like the original guy. He was the original guy that they put in there, and he worked with us for probably about 7 or 8 years here at the shop.
That's awesome.
Love
that.
Guy. Wow. He hails from the same area of Cuba too. So like my dad and him, they were always poking jokes and breaking each other's balls and stuff. It was priceless.
Oh, that is so awesome.
But he brought me that mold. My aunt said, "Listen, Luisito, when you go back to Tampa, can you take this to my nephew?" I had no idea. Like he shows up with this mold. I'm like, "Oh my god!" My dad was like teary-eyed, crying.
Oh man, I
haven't seen this thing in years, man. Yeah.
Oh,
getting that through TSA and customs. What is this? Yeah,
he put it in a bag. He just put it in a bag.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm thinking that mold is probably from like the 30s or 40s, man. It's
wow. How cool
that mold could talk.
Oh my god, the stories it would have.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you a story about him too. Like he had his own little factory, like I said, his own little chinchal. So he had dozens of these molds right back in the day, like back in 1959, 1960. And imagine all his life he worked hard to have his little business, and the communists come one day and said, "Listen, you can't make cigars anymore." He says, "Really? Well, why not?" "Oh, because it's illegal now. Cuba tobacco. It's going to be state run and all this other stuff. Oh, but by the way, if you want, we can give you a job with the new state run Cuba tobacco."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, you know what? Why don't you go screw yourself?" And that put him in jail for a little bit. He's a political prisoner. And that was the end of that, So, but I'll tell you something though. His brother, who he loved dearly, was very. I met him, Uncle Antonio. He's a very kind man, very soft spoken. But when the communists went in and said, "Hey, you want to work for the state?" He looked at my grandfather. He said, "I guess there's nothing else to do. I might as well do it." And he said, "Well, good luck with that, because I know you're not going to last." And like maybe 3 or 4 months later, he told them to go screw themselves. And if you walk into my humidor, you'll see the actual. I blew it up, like the picture of his little ID card, and it says Cuba Tobacco 1960 and stuff. So we have that on the wall.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh man, that is super cool to have.
Crazy. Yeah. I've been so fortunate to get all these little relics from the family and stuff.
That's amazing.
So you come back to Miami after your Cuba trip. You're 14.
Yep.
Take us. So what did you do as a young man, and when did you actually get into the cigar business? How old were you, and how did you get into it? Or were you in it in Miami, or wait till here? So
Well, let me tell you, I was, believe it or not, they always say don't quit your day job. So my day job for like 10 years was banking. I was in the banking business. And I it was okay. It paid the bills, but my heart and passion was not in it, And little by little,
that's what your father did as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. He was a numbers guy, accounting and stuff. So I'll tell you a funny story about what happened this weekend too, which I thought was unbelievable, but weird shit that always happens to me. But anyway, like I was about 25 years old, and my mom had passed away, and that's when I said to my dad, I said, I really want to pursue this, because back in the 90s, my mom passes away of kidney failure. So unfortunately, Dad had to suffer through that whole illness, and he used to take her to the hospital three times a week, and he just could not commit to helping me with the business. And then I saw basically the 90s come and go, the whole tobacco cigar boom and everything, and I was like, man, I really want to do this, So I had to put that on the back burner. And back when she passed in 2003 is when we finally got into it, and I was 25 years old at the time. So with the help of Florida Gonzalez, like I was mentioning earlier, her dad, Yadi's dad, Arnaldo Gonzalez, he was a mentor to me. I would basically go to the factory and help him out, and I started selling my cigars on the internet and stuff, and just local connections. And then I decided to move up here because I had a lot of family in Tampa, and of course Tampa is a cigar city. This is where I wanted to be, and that's what brought me up here. But I was 25 years old when I kind of took the plunge, So and I still worked in the bank, so I was doing that part time, basically.
So when you moved up here, were you still in the banking and then still doing some cigar, or?
Yeah, I worked in the bank up here for probably about a couple years. We got the little shop going in Tarpon Springs, and Dad said to me, he said, "Look, he's a very conservative guy." He says, "Let's start this." He's already retired, so he says, "Let's start the business. I'll work it. I'm not going to take a salary." let's just get the money and reinvest it right back into the business. And we did that for a number of years. I was still working at the bank, and thank God that's how we did it, because back then in the early days we couldn't get a salary. And once everything got basically up and going, then Dad started getting some money out of there. I started collecting a little paycheck myself, and it was just very hard in the beginning. It was a big sacrifice, but now, I'm so grateful. I always say that I'm here today because of what my dad did for me. So
yeah, I think we all are for sure. I know it's in my case as well. So when you opened up your shop, were you just another retail shop? You had because I know right now you have a lot of your own cigars. You have rollers in your shop, or a roller. Now, is that how you started, or did you start as a traditional shop selling a whole bunch of different cigars?
Well, and believe it or not, in the early days, we were selling a lot of Florida Gonzalez's products. Some of our other friends in Miami, some of them have retired already from the business. Mostly boutique brands, and some of the major brands. And then we started making a little bit of cigars on our own, which was, of course, that was the ultimate goal. And then, believe it or not, I really didn't start making any of these brands, guys, till about 2019, or actually 2020, wow. right after Dad passed away. Yeah,
really.
Because for many years, all we were doing were naked bundles, and that's basically like our local clientele was just naked bundles. And but here's the twist on the whole story. Dad passes away late 2019, almost 2020, and I remember me and him were always talking about Tampa and the history and the old labels. And I would say, "Hey, Dad, man, look at this brand, Florida Tampa. Oh my God, that'd be so great if we could bring that back." I said, "Hey, look at this one, Príncipe de Gales, which is the one you were talking about earlier. That was Mr. Ebor's brand from Ybor City. So that was the second brand that was made in Tampa. The first one was the one that the Newmans have, which is what the heck is it? Not Cuesta Rey. It'll come to me.
The Angel Cuesta, or
God, I'm having a brain fart now. No. Anyway, it was Serafin Sanchez, like my last name, but first name. And was it Serafin Sanchez? God, I can't believe I'm having a brain fart. It'll come to me. But anyway, Mr. Ybor, let me tell you a story about Príncipe de Gales. 1853, he founds the brand in Havana. And then in 1869, he was a Spaniard from Seville, but he was very in touch with the Cuban, fight for independence back then. So he fell out of grace with the Spanish government. There it is, yeah, with the Spanish government that was ruling Cuba. So in 1869, he brings that brand to Key West, and basically, two guys, a Spaniard and a Cuban, that were based in New York, take a trip to Key West, and they say to Mr. Ybor, they said, "Yeah, we're gonna go check out this area in West Central Florida. It's like a big swamp up there." "Oh yeah, where? Tampa." "Oh really?" Goes, "What's in Tampa?" They say, "Wild guavas." You guys know what a guava plant is, right? The little
yeah.
So it was a steamship back then. They said, "Well," Mr. Ybor says, "Can I come with you guys?" He says, "Sure." Gets up to Tampa, buys 40 acres from the Tampa Board of Commerce, I think it was, or Board of Trade. There's Mr. Ybor, the visionary. What a guy. Unbelievable. And he buys 40 acres. He builds this huge brick building, which was at one time the largest cigar factory in the world. I mean, he made more cigars there, and Tampa in general made more cigars than Havana did back in the day, which is unbelievable.
I just Googled that, and everything popped up what he just said. Like, if you type in like Florida, like the beginning of cigars, it's all of that.
Yeah, and then Mr. Ybor originally spelled his name with an I, an IBOR. But he got into a little bit of a issue with the Spanish, didn't he? With the something with Q. I don't remember the story, but when he moved to Florida, he's like, maybe I should change my name a little bit. And
well, he wanted to change it because, like in Spanish, you say Ybor, right? Yeah. And in English, he's like, it would have been Ybor. So he said, well, if I make it with a Y, then people can pronounce it Ybor.
Yeah,
and that's what he did. But my God,
I was trying to find the JC Newman cigar, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
It's gonna come to me, guys. It's gonna come to me. But him and not the Newmans, but the competing people.
I think it was Cuesta Rey.
Okay, no, Sanchez and Haya. I just got it.
Sanchez and Haya. That's the name of the hotel across the street now. Sanchez and Haya.
Ignacio Haya, and Serafin Sanchez had Sanchez and Haya. So Ignacio Haya and Mr. Ybor were dear friends, and then they did a friendly wager. They said, well, you know what? Let's see who can build the first building, and whoever builds it is going to get issued the permit for cigar factory number 1. And it was Ignacio Haya got it. So they had it for many years, the Sanchez and Haya permit. And then Ybor was cigar factory number 2. But Mr. Ybor, my God, he had many, many brands. The name of the building was the Príncipe de Gales, which means Prince of Wales, is what that means in Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Beautiful brand. His great grandson, Raphael, when I did the brand, he just passed away about a month ago, 93 years old. Wow. And I went to Raphael and I said, Raphael, I'm going to bring back your great grandfather's brand, and I want your blessing for it. He said, my God, he goes, I never thought I'd see this day happen. He was so thrilled, and I really wanted to do an interview with him and get all this information. And I told him many times, I said, we got to do something together because this history is going to get lost. But then his wife passed away about 2 years ago. She was very sick, and he took care of her. And he was just so depressed for such a long time. Mm-hmm. We just never got that. We never got that recorded, But
but we're recording history now. Yeah. You're like a wealth of information of all of that. Like
I'm very passionate about it.
No, it's good. You can tell, and I love that because we take for granted sometimes that we live here in Florida. I think and we smoke cigars, but we don't always know all of the history.
Oh my God, Florida was so rich in history with tobacco.
Cool. That's so cool.
This cigar right here, the Juan de Fuca. Let me go this way. Yeah, there it is. So this guy, if you guys go out to Seattle, there's a straight that goes from, Washington State. There it is, yeah. And there's the Navigator. He was a navigator. So here's the twist. Why did I pick this brand, right? Well, Juan de Fuca, what a lot of people don't know, was actually a Greek. His name was Ioannis de Focas. But funny thing is, he went to Spain, just like Columbus did, and he sailed for Spain. So he sailed the waters off of Washington State, and there's a strait there called the Juan de Fuca Strait. So I discovered this brand. It was being made in Tampa many, many years ago by a company called the Morgan Cigar Company. So, of course, Carlito Fuentes, a dear friend of mine, I saw him on Saturday, big historian. Carlito's all about Tampa, all about our history. So we share that, we love it. So I went up to him and I said, Carlito, do you remember Juan de Fuca? And he says, shit, man. He goes, I don't remember my phone number, but I sure as hell remember Juan de Fuca. That's what he said to me. And, I said, well, I'm going to bring it back. And he says, do it, man. And then, I had his blessing to do that one. And then I got another one called Flor de Tampa, which is from the 1800s, La Floridana. And also, I don't know if do you guys have that one? Did you guys get that one?
Let's see. We didn't get that one. I got the.
I told my son to pack these up, and he was in such a hurry to get them to you guys. Maybe he forgot to put that one in.
That's okay.
There it is.
I do have that one. Yep.
Okay, so you want to hear a story about that one? So
yeah.
These are all historic Tampa labels. So Carlito also told me. He said I talked to him about La Floridana. He says, funny thing is, his father one time wanted to buy that brand from the gentleman that owned it, who was a Cuban guy named Bill Diaz. And I said, well, what happened? He says, well, they went into this meeting, and Bill Diaz, he was a very, very kind of an arrogant guy, very proud guy. And he kind of felt that, he couldn't sell it to these guys. They were just a small local company, and he thought that he was, grandiose or whatever. And I said, no shit. Imagine that back in the day. So that never happened. Yep. And eventually, the Diaz family had it until 1971 or 72, and then the company became defunct. So I basically resurrected all these old brands that for many years have just been forgotten in history, man.
You wonder how, especially here in Florida, how nobody has picked up on the Florida name. How did nobody all these years, the Newmans, Fuente, whoever, never think about, hey, maybe I should research this trademark and see if anybody.
Still. And I've trademarked all these. I've trademarked them. As a matter of fact, somebody did a knockoff of La Floridana. I'm not going to get into that, but it was a touchy little subject, and I was very upset about that. Because I do everything by the book, man. I go and I register my trademark and I put it out in commerce, and then somebody just went out and kind of knocked it off, and I was very upset about that.
Has that? We're not going to go into that, but has that been resolved yet or no?
Kind of, sort of. It's one of those things that, they're not going to make any more of them. And unfortunately, I have a good friend of mine who's a trademark attorney. And he said to me, he goes, these things, that once you get involved in it can be very messy. Mm-hmm. And the only people that really make money with these things are the attorneys. So sometimes if the person says they're not going to do it anymore, it's better to just leave it alone. And that's kind of what I've done,
because they changed the rules years ago on the trademark. Even if you win the case, you can't sue them for your attorney's fees now. So like you're out. So and
here's the thing, like I don't want to ruin anybody. I mean, I'm just trying to earn a living like everybody else. But all I'm saying is, how do you go out and make a brand and not even do your due diligence? And that's what I told this person. Mm-hmm. I said, you got to do your due diligence, man. Because I mean, what if somebody's got this brand, which is in my case, it's me, and I've done my due diligence, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes,
Yeah, but, I had part of my name stolen by a bigger company, and there's nothing I can do about it. They knew about my brand, but they knew they were a million times bigger than me. I'm like, what are you going to do about it? And I'm like,
and there's other stories. You're right. Yeah. There's other stories of other companies that, let's say something like that happens and it's a bigger company. Like I have somebody that I know as well that I'm not going to mention names, but he had a problem with one of the large companies. And they were like, oh, you know what? Let's sit down and have a meeting. And we're so sorry. And if you let us, basically use the name, we're going to give you a royalty for it. Yeah. And that's what they've done.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. Yeah.
You know what you said earlier? What you said earlier is true, because I can't remember, one of my friends or somebody said, you know what? It's amazing. Like you said, you got all these, I'm going to say, I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the world, but, I like history. That's why I did this. And I'm very passionate about it. I love it. But there's so many people that, like, this was just in their face. Like, it was just here looking at you. And nobody did it. And now people are doing it. But I'm like, wow. I mean, holy shit. It was there all these years.
Yeah.
The guy, what he said, he goes, why start another brand if, like our ancestors before us, they had already done the groundwork for me.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy it. Like that.
Tell us before I forget. Tell us about the event this weekend, the Fuente Opus X event.
Oh, wow. What a great event. My God.
Yeah. So what was that? What was the event all about? I saw all the pictures, but I didn't get the press release. So I don't know what the event was for. Sure.
Well, Manny Iriarte does the Opus X Society products.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I've got the ashtray here. If you guys, we're somewhere right here.
Yeah, Carrie, Manny, right?
Yeah, he's such a
Manny's a great guy.
Manny's
he's the best. Class all the way, man. Mm-hmm. But Manny had been working with Carlito for many years. He does a lot of the design and stuff for him for Opus X. And a few years ago, he said, look, man, you know what? I want to go ahead and do Opus X Society, which is, these really beautiful luxury products, even like taking Opus X to the next level. And, eventually they got together on the idea and said, well, why don't we make a cigar for the Opus X Society? And that's what this was. This was like the world premiere. And there were people there lining up, man. There were people there lining up for these boxes.
Well, the accessories are so beautiful. The coloring,
gorgeous.
Like even the detail on the boxes, like
Manny's a designer.
They're so nice.
I have one issue with Manny.
What's that?
He's that talented, and when I met him for the first time in Ybor City in person, he's so damn good looking. I was like, son of a bitch, you have so much talent and skill artistically, and you look like that. This is not a fair life that I live in.
Oh, and let me say this too proudly. He's also from Santa Clara, so from like our same hometown in Cuba. So when I was at the event, he hugged me, and somebody was there, and I said, look, and Manny's from Santa Clara, goddammit. He's even smarter than everybody.
Yeah. So were they giving out some of the cigars down there?
We all got, if you had a ticket to attend the event, we got an ashtray, we got a beautiful cigar case, we got a cigar in a coffin. I should have brought it. It's inside the house, and it was one cigar per person. These cigars, my understanding is they retail for about $100 a piece, so it's very high end.
Yeah. So they did, because I know at certain Fuente events when they're giving out cigars, like the staff, when they give it to you lit. Like they cut it and light it and hand it to you, so you can't take it home and sell it.
We could take them home, and I did. I took mine home because they were so gracious that they gave us another Opus X to smoke there, and they gave us I think it was a Magnum R, which was great too. Yeah,
it's a great family.
Carlito was there.
Yeah.
Now you'd mentioned a little bit ago that your son was running your other store. So how far away is the other store?
The other store is about 20 miles north of the Tarpon Springs location. but it's probably about 2 miles up the road here. So it's like a 5-minute drive for me.
Okay,
so it's funny because
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that when Dad was alive, I would split my time between both shops, and when he passed away, I kind of basically catapulted into the other one. And my son at the time, it's just amazing how things work out. He was turning 18 years old, so I said, "Well, you know what? You've been helping me out since you were like 11 years old anyway, so here you go." And now I go there, which is funny. We have a warehouse there. That's where I ship all my wholesale and stuff out of there. And I go there, and it's like some of the customers, I don't even know them. And they'll call me, "Hey, is Brandon around?" Like, he's more famous than I am there. I'm like, wow, man, great. More power to you, bro.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Did he show an interest at an early age for getting into the business? Because he's fifth generation now. That's insane. 5 generations.
5 generations somehow related to tobacco. It's crazy. He, like all kids, especially now. I mean, he's into the Comic Cons and the not Pokemon, but the Funko Pops, and he's just he loves all that stuff. So, but he knows that cigars, like for us, is a family thing. So he's always been very serious. Like, I'm a joker, man. I'm always poking jokes, and he's a really serious guy. And when it comes to the business, I'll go over there, and he's like, "We got to do this way." I'm like, "Oh, okay, man. Hey, whatever you say." So he's I kind of let him do his own thing, and he loves it. He really does. I think. And now we smoke cigars together.
How old is he now?
Brandon is 23 now. He just turned
23. Wow.
So is he?
He's just finishing college too. He's going to college, and he'll be done probably next semester. He'll be done already.
Now is he going to continue? Running the cigar shop, or is he?
Listen, the offer's on the table. I said, look, if you want to continue, you're here. You're doing a great job. If you want to go pursue something else, I understand. My wife and I will figure it out somehow.
What's he getting his degree in?
Accounting. Can you believe that?
I was going to say it's money. I knew it.
He's 5th generation tobacco and 4th generation accountant.
It's crazy. It's insane. He's a numbers guy. I'm a horrible numbers guy.
It's absolutely saying like, yeah, if you want to go off and do something else and break your mom's heart, that's fine. I'm fine with that. You have to tell her. Yeah.
The 1917 was my tribute to him with the little pigtail on the on the top and the full foot, very Cuban style. And then what I did for my dad was a Connecticut wrapper, because when the customers would come into the store, they would always. Dad was like, "Oh, let me show you this beautiful." He loved the Connecticut wrapper, so I wanted to make something that he loved, the big Presidente size. So each one of those that I made are limited edition runs, and there's something that was kind of meaningful to them.
Brandon ever feel the pressure of the history that he has to live up to versus maybe wanting to try something new? Because I mean, that to me, I can't imagine it's 2024. I'm a young kid. I want to try some new innovative stuff, but I'm also 5th generation. I got to keep with the family history. Is that does he feel from you the support of just doing whatever? It's your your thing.
I always tell him, I go, listen, I love what I do, and I don't anticipate I'm going to be retiring anytime soon. I go, but truthfully, everything that I'm doing is for him, for the future, for him to keep this going. So I think he knows that this is something that's going to be kind of handed to him at some point, and he'll take it to the next level. And him with his accounting background now and everything, I feel that hopefully if the government doesn't keep screwing with us, and we can continue doing this, and who knows where he can take things,
Yeah,
I think it's.
I'm honored.
I think it's really good that he has all that history, though, and being the generation that he is, I think he's still going to find a way to honor tradition and the history and still bring it forward if he decided to do that.
I remember him telling me just the other day. He said, "Dad, you know what? Oh, I was just gonna say." He goes, I would love to just do a box, and I go, "What kind?" He goes, "I want to do a white box." So I have some ideas, and I'm like, you know what? When we do the box that I'm thinking, I want him to kind of design it, and I want him to run with that one. Guys. Again, like Carlito always says, and it sounds taboo as hell. It's not about the cigars; it's about the people. But it's true. Like I go to Jersey now, and it's funny. I recruited an old friend of ours. I don't know if he's watching now, and he's kind of retired. He was a principal and a teacher, and he's been helping us promote the brand up there. and another friend of mine who we grew up together. He just bought a mobile cigar lounge. So now it's really, really cool. I was supposed to go there the day of the hurricane. I had a ticket to fly up. And my wife says, well, you know what? You might not want to fly up there this weekend because he had an event. Because I think this is going to be bad. And I canceled the trip because thank God, that I was able to stay here.
Yeah.
But, these guys are helping me push the brand. And I'm like in Jersey like almost every other month now because, we're getting a lot of attention up there and a lot of steam. So it's and it's exactly what you said, Kurt. Like I hang out at the shop up there. I don't know if he's watching Richie in Lyndhurst Cigar Emporium. And Richie's a great guy. He's been there for years. And, you know what? You go there, and I swear to God, it's just like I always joke about it. Some of the guys get mad. It's like the freaking Sopranos, man. Like everybody is sitting on the side of the road in the tables, like when the weather's nice, and it's just phenomenal. I just think it's the greatest thing. But it's about community, It's about going there. Like I went there in, I think it was in May, and we did an event there, and I hung out, and it was great.
Nice.
That's awesome. I'm just finishing up your artisan cigar.
How is it? Did you like it?
It is fantastic. I mean, I'm smoking it to the nub, and it is almost a razor sharp burn. Good flavors. Now, is this the one of the ones? Do you roll all of your artisan in house?
No, we were making them all. So let me tell you what happened. We were doing it all in here in Florida, and believe it or not, I guess it's a good problem to have. We kind of outgrew that. So I have a partner down in Nicaragua, and we're making a lot of them in Nicaragua now. So most of these that you guys have are all made in Nicaragua, and different wrappers, different blends. Like the Juan de Fuca is my first time ever using Cameroon wrapper. So this one has been a hit. It's funny when I blended this one, I didn't really like it. I thought it was too strong, and it was very bitter. So I said, man, I got to tone this down. And we started fooling around with different blends and everything, and I finally got it to where I wanted, and now I'm happy. I'm really happy with it.
It's funny you say that because I just finished the Juan de Fuca, and
what did you think about it?
I kept burning my fingers on it because I smoked it enough. It was very smooth. It had really good spice to it, like a little bit of spice, but it was a really good, consistent. Like it wasn't peppery, salt on my tongue. It felt like that baking spices that everybody calls it. But
sure,
I didn't even know. I know I looked it up, and I probably forgot about it until you just said it. I'm not a Cameroon wrapper guy.
Okay,
I'm not. I've only had
okay.
I'm not. I've only had a few cigars that have a Cameroon wrapper that I've liked, and I would have never known. When you said it was a Cameroon wrapper, and it was just a little too bitter, a little too this, too that, and you adjusted the blend. It makes sense because with Cameroon wrappers, always it's a little bitter, a little off-putting, but whatever you blended, it definitely offset whatever. For my palate, the Cameroon wrapper does.
Yeah, I just really love the blend, and it's funny because it depends. Like the Principe de Gal is, you're smoking one there, I think, right?
Jessica
smoking one, right?
I just finished it.
What'd you think about it? Did you like it?
I did. I liked in the beginning though. Like I liked that like a leathery, like undertone. And it had like almost a little bit of like hay, like because it's not sweet, but I call it like a grassy kind of undertone with the leather. But for me, it's always about the retro, and like because I like when it's kind of more mild when you're just smoking it, but when you hit that retro, it gives you that extra like zap that you're looking for, so it has a nice transition. Because if you're just smoking it was a very smooth cigar, but with the retro, that's where you're getting your transitions with the pops of pepper and stuff.
Did it burn? Did it burn nice? Was it even?
No, it did. It burned.
Yeah, rock solid.
That retro will reintroduce itself. The retro.
That's one of my go-tos, man.
Right.
So Arnold, Jessica mentions the retro hail. Is that a big thing in with your dad, your grandfather? Was the retro hail something that they looked for?
They loved it. And you know what?
Evan didn't want to hear that.
My dad did that all the time, and towards the end he was kind of sick and he couldn't do that anymore. And he would say to my buddy Fernando, who works with me at the shop, he's a teacher and he works with me on the weekends and stuff. He would say to Fernando, "Hey, light that cigar. Let me smell it. Let me get a whiff of it." He would just love that. He just really, really enjoyed it.
The reverse retro.
And that's what I wanted to do with that Connecticut wrapper. I wanted to make a mild cigar, but like you said, I didn't want it to be like smoking air because you hear that a lot. You're like, man, I bought this Connecticut wrapper. Because remember, the advantage is I have folks coming into the shop all the time, and I hear everything. So I'm like, you know what? I want to make a Connecticut wrapper that's smooth, it's creamy, right? Like you said, a little leathery. But at the end of the day, I want it to be mild, but I want to have character. I want to have, like they say in Spanish, cojones. I want to have a little bit of balls.
Yeah.
And that's what I did with the Prince of Wales. It was like a spinoff of my dad's, blend, which is what I did there. Because people would come in and say, Dad's cigar is a long one. It's a double Corona. So they would say, well, when are you going to make this in a shorter size? I said, never, because it's a special edition. It's something that I did for him. But then here's me thinking, I'm like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the Prince of Wales with that same blend. And that's what I did. If anybody did you guys got the Florida Tampa, right? We sent you some.
I was just getting ready to ask.
Great cigar. I loved the band on that. Yeah. And I think that the cigar luckily was fantastic. It could have been horrible, and I was going to love that cigar.
You're going to love the band
just because of that classic.
I did a temporary. The glass top was supposed to be a temporary thing. At some point, we're going to make boxes of 20 because that one. What I did was I used a 3-region blend, from Nicaragua, and we finished it with an Ecuador wrapper. So when you light that cigar up, in my opinion, it tends to be bitter, just probably maybe about a quarter into it, and then the flavor starts really kicking in there, and you're like, man, I really enjoy it,
When I'm smoking it, it tastes very creamy, very lush, but when I retrohale, I get a bunch of nuttiness, like really incredible nuttiness when you retrohale on it. You get guys,
that's one of the best wrappers out there. Is Ecuador.
You get a little bit in your mouth, but when you retrohale, it's like freaking. You got your peanut butter and my chocolate and your peanut butter.
You guys are going to be at PCA next year?
Yeah, we're going to be there. We're going to be right by the Fuente Newman booth. I love to always be there, close to Carlito. Because we always say the Tampa guys like to stay together.
Yeah.
That's it. Karen and I will be there, so we'll definitely reach out to you. We'll set up a little interview.
Come by, man. That'd be
when we come up there as well. It'd be super.
I got to start working on getting everything ironed out for that now because it's only a few months away.
No.
Yeah, I know.
It seems like it just kind of creeps up on us.
I know. Next thing you know, it'll be like, hey, we got to leave in a couple weeks. So yeah.
Man, this year I've been to so many different places and just gone everywhere, just trying to hit the pavement as much as I can. And just like you said, just little by little, just trying to put our face in, the cigars in front of people. That's what it's all about.
Right on. One final question. What's the most rewarding part of being a 4th-generation tobacco business owner?
That's a really great question. I think just like the right now, you guys are smoking the cigars. To me, it's just seeing a smile on your face, knowing that you enjoyed something that is an extension from my family to you guys. It's like there's no bigger honor for me than that.
I love the history, especially the cigar brands you brought back. Just smoking your cigars and just trying to think back of your grandfather. Think about from Spain to Cuba. And,
oh my God!
The your smoking history. It's just all the people that made it possible. For you to be here in 2024.
Absolutely.
Selling cigars. So I love it.
I'm here because of Grandpa. I'm fulfilling his dream because he loves the cigar business. And then the fact that my father gave me almost 20 years or just about 20 years, to help me get to this level. So yeah, I'm very grateful for them. Really. So you know what? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on the show tonight. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'll have to thank Boston Jimmy for sure for having suggestion to having you come on. I've had a blast. I love.
Yeah,
thank you.
Everybody
I hope I wasn't boring.
No. I mean, it's
that's fantastic.
There's probably 1,000 other things we could keep going and talking about. I love history as well.
I have a little YouTube channel myself, and we just do silly little videos in the shop. We talk about a bunch of different things.
Yeah, so anybody watching tonight or listening to the podcast, in the video description or the podcast description is the link to your YouTube. I also linked your Instagram. I also linked your website. So you can go on the website, purchase the cigars. You can go on the YouTube and watch the videos that you guys have done. So,
but really, thank you guys again for having me on the show. It's been an honor to be here, and I hope you guys enjoy the cigars.
That's it. Care, any final questions for Arnold?
No, none. Thank you. Again, like Kevin said and Jessica said, what a great walk down history lane. to the memory lane, the history lane.